Pirates. Objectively the coolest kind of people. Yeah, sure, they usually pillage, plunder, rifle, and loot, and maybe sometimes they even kidnap and ravage and don't give a hoot, but there's just something about a guy wearing a flashy hat sailing the seas on a big wooden boat that will never not be awesome. As such, whenever someone thinks something is cool, they will in turn want to do that thing. Problem is, though, getting a bunch of guys to get on a big wooden boat with you and then go hunting for treasure is not something most would be able to achieve nowadays. So to get that pirate experience, you have to turn to things like movies, theme park rides, and in today's case, video games. Having a fun pirate game where you get to sail around on a big boat and do fun pirate stuff is not everyone's dream, but probably like a good 90% at least. So today I just wanted to recommend a few pirate games that I thought were fun, because I want to, okay? Let's get going. So first up, I wanted to talk about a Pirates of the Caribbean game, since I feel like both the rides and the movies have greatly increased me and many other people's interest in pirates. But the problem is that since this was a series of movies that came out mostly in the early 2000s, a lot of the games here are just pretty typical and not very interesting licensed games. But luckily for me, there is one type of licensed game that Pirates of the Caribbean did get, which you can usually rely on being at least somewhat fun. A Lego game. Unlike a lot of the games we are going to talk about in this video, this game is less about giving you the pirate experience of sailing around the ocean on a boat and hunting for treasure, and more about just giving the typical Lego game experience while using some of the memorable music and scenes from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I didn't play much of the game for this video, but also to be fair, you really don't have to play much of a Lego game to get a good idea of what it's all about. Especially after making that big Lego game video, I've come to appreciate Lego games as more of like the video game equivalent of fast food, and I do mean that in a good way. Just like going to McDonald's or something, you know exactly what you're getting into with one of these games, and while sometimes it's not as good as usual, for the most part you're always going to get that same experience. Lego Pirates of the Caribbean is no exception to that idea, and I like it for that. The movies this game is based on absolutely nail the pirate look and feel, so a lot of that transfers over to the game very well. So while the gameplay might not feel super piratey or anything, the look, the music, and all that other stuff does. I think my only problem here is that what I've learned from playing a lot of these types of games is that usually the more diverse types of characters you can have, the better. Games like Lego Marvel, Star Wars, or especially a game like Dimensions always stick out way more in my mind since all of the different characters have all sorts of different abilities that do different things. Meanwhile, in this game, every character is a guy with a sword or a gun. Obviously, that makes sense within the world, but it just makes the character selection a little boring. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this one. Let's move on to the actual non-Lego pirate stuff. The next game I want to talk about is none other than Sid Meier's Pirates. Now, if you recognize the name Sid Meier, you probably know it from the Civilization series. Unless you know the guy, you know this guy? Now, I don't know anything about Civilization, but what I do know is that whenever people are talking about pirate games, Sid Meier's Pirates is always at least like the third or fourth game to come up. Just from loading up the game and the game not letting you switch from a 4:3 aspect ratio, it is very easy to tell that this game is from a different era. Old PC games from around this time are something I have very little experience with, but I gotta say, each time I play one, they just have a certain charm to them. I don't know what it is. So upon starting up a new save, you get a little bit of context as to what's going on in the story, and then you're just sort of thrown into it with no real goal or objective. At first, I thought I would find this annoying, but honestly, after doing just a little bit of exploring, it becomes very clear what you can do and what your different goals are. Now, it's not like the game has a definitive, you need to do this to progress. It's a very open-ended game that just lets you live out your own little pirate fantasy where you can hunt for treasure, get into ship battles, and dance with as many governor's daughters as your little heart desires. What I like about this game is that everything about it is extremely simple and easy to understand without a tutorial in sight. This makes it extremely easy to understand for newcomers, but from what I've played, it seems like there is a lot of depth to many of the systems in the game, meaning that people that are familiar with the game can continue to get better and play it in different ways. You get to side with different countries, the different settlements can have things happen to them that can affect who's in power or how well their economy is doing, which affects the prices at which you can buy and sell things. For me, I just sided with the Spanish for the most part because by the time I had met with one of the governors, I had already done a ton of things he wanted me to do, so I got promoted really fast. I ended up enjoying this game way more than I thought I would, and I'll probably be revisiting it after I finish this video. If you're interested in it, the game's on Steam. Like I said earlier, it's definitely dated, but for the most part, I found it very easy to get into. While that last game was very fun, there is another single-player pirate game that I have seen mentioned time and time again, even when I wasn't looking for a pirate game: Assassin's Creed Black Flag. This is one of those games that you will hear so many people gush about constantly, so I've actually been meaning to play it for a while, but I'm just now getting around to it for this video. Now, for me, this will be my first Assassin's Creed game, so I guess you can sort of take this section of the video as my review of this game as a pirate game, as well as my first impressions on this series as a whole. Now, I gotta say, this game starts off with a bang, putting you right in the middle of a big ship fight that you actually get control over. It's a good way of introducing you to the ship battle mechanics, as well as giving you a quick taste of what's going to come later, because after this, oh boy do you have to wait a minute before you get on that boat again. After this, the game starts introducing you to the core stealth and parkour mechanics that you will be using outside of the ship, and yeah, we'll get into that later. So I guess to start with my actual opinions, we will talk about the more piratey part of the game, where you're sailing around, fighting and looting other ships, attacking forts, and all that stuff. This side of the game is easily some of the best single-player pirate content out there. Not that there's much competition, but hey, it's still a compliment. I don't know what it is, but just being able to sail around, park your ship, jump off, and go explore an island, then get back on, all without a loading screen, just gives me this incredible feeling of happiness. And then we go to like the 10-minute long tailing missions, which gives me an incredible feeling of dread. Look, as much as I love all the pirate stuff in this game, I think through playing this game, I have found that I don't quite like Assassin's Creed. I like a lot of the ideas put on display here, like the parkour and stealth, but for every time you're able to effortlessly make it through a bunch of enemies without being detected, or do a bunch of cool jumps around on the rooftops, you have like 10 other times where you're just frustrated because the game didn't do what you wanted it to do. It feels really strange to me that this is the part of the game that feels finicky because, like, isn't this the fourth Assassin's Creed game? I feel like they've had way more time to refine the stealth and parkour over the ship mechanics that were introduced in this game. Maybe it's just me and everyone else likes the stealth in this game. I will admit, the farther you progress and get more tools, the more fun the stealth gets since you have more ways to approach it, but it's still not really my favorite. And while I don't play a ton of stealth games, I have played these games, which are sort of my main comparison point for stealth, so some of you may now understand why I don't quite enjoy the stealth in this game. And then, like I said earlier, you just have the comically long tailing missions, which are genuinely miserable. I hate them. The combat in this game is also pretty rough and doesn't feel very good. Most of the time you can just sneak around and take an enemy down in one hit, but when you can't, ugh, I don't like it. I know I'm doing a lot of complaining, but I do still think that this is a good game, especially if you're looking for something to give you that good old pirate feel. But, you know, just be prepared to maybe not like some of the other stuff. And by other stuff, I mean the main gameplay of the game. So if Black Flag had good pirate stuff, but sort of lackluster Assassin's Creed stuff, what if we take a look at another big budget pirate game that has no Assassin's Creed stuff? Sea of Thieves came out 7 years ago. What? I remember being extremely excited for the release of this game because the core concept of it is just so cool. You're set loose in a world either by yourself or with friends, where you can look for treasure, fight big sea monsters and skeletons, or even run into other players and either work with them or try to kill each other on sight. I'm usually not huge on big live service games, but Sea of Thieves just has such a cool and unique core concept that is made so much more fun because of the online aspect. And then you have the gameplay of being able to just sail around wherever you want, with the game genuinely having some of the most fun ship sailing and ship combat gameplay you could ask for. In games like Sid Meier's Pirates or Black Flag, you're given more control over what's going on with your ship, with you being able to both sail your ship around while also attacking and doing other things at the same time. That works much better in a single player game where your pirate crew is made up of a bunch of not real people. But in Sea of Thieves, if you want to steer the ship, you need to be on the wheel. If you want to fire the cannons, you need to be on the cannons. Everything in this game feels way more involved and can make you feel some of the greatest synergy you've ever felt if you're playing this with friends. You can definitely play Sea of Thieves by yourself and probably even be pretty good at it, but I know people who do that and they're weird. The people I'm talking about, if you're watching this video, you're weird, you hear me? Also, upon returning to the game for this video, I found that they added a new grapple gun weapon, and I just want to let the developers know that I approve of this. A good addition. Okay, now it's time to complain again. So the way this game is set up allows for some really fun friend and random player interactions, but then when you sit there and play the actual content of the game, yeah, it's just boring and repetitive. You take a mission, go find the thing the guy's looking for, sell it to them for money, rinse and repeat for the entire game. This would be fine if that money you get actually allowed you to get meaningful items or upgrades, but no, you can only buy cosmetics with it. But then also you can just buy other, probably better cosmetics just by paying real money. I get that the idea here is that if you can only buy cosmetics with your gold, then everyone is on an even playing field and only your skill will help you prevail in PvP. Yeah, screw that, I want to be a cool pirate who bullies the pirates that aren't as cool as me. Genuinely, being able to buy new, more powerful weapons or upgrades to your ship would make the gameplay loop of this game so much better, and if they're worried about making PvP unfair, then just have a separate PvP mode where people are on an even playing field. I also noticed that they now have a safer seas option for people who want to play the game without having to worry about getting destroyed by people who play the game way more than they do. But also, and this is a genuine question, what would be fun at all about playing Sea of Thieves with no other players? I could maybe get it if there was an actual progression system and meaningful single-player content, but the way it is now, it would just be a grind fest with absolutely no chance of anything funny happening because you've cut out all the online stuff, which is what made the game fun in the first place. And before people scream at me that you can play Tall Tales, which could count as single-player content, yeah, no, those things are miserable, I don't want to play those. I was gushing about the ship combat earlier, but the hand-to-hand / gun combat is not good. It feels stiff and slow, and so when all you're doing in these story missions are fighting skeletons with bad combat and doing puzzles that I don't really like, yeah, I'm good to skip out on these. I will say there was one puzzle I did when I played the game for this video that I liked, so good job guys, you got one. This is sort of a situation similar to Black Flag for me, where I have a lot of complaining I want to do about the game, but it's not because I dislike it, but rather because the stuff I do like, I really like, and just wish the rest of the game could be up to that standard. Another thing that kind of bothers me is that I got this game at launch and have played it off and on since then, but in all my time of playing and all the countless new updates, nothing really changed. Yeah, sure, there's new content, but a lot of that content is just the old content with a new skin on it. All of the problems this game has had for years are still there. Maybe for me, it's just a fundamental problem with how the game is set up, as like I said earlier, I think the lack of any real progression greatly hurts the game. And look, I can kind of see why some people might like that, but in that case, just use the framework of this game to make a new one with better progression and maybe some more single-player stuff. So much of this game I think is great and really stands out compared to the other pirate games. But also, those other pirate games get some of the fundamentals, like how to make a fun gameplay loop down, way better than Sea of Thieves ever has. Look, at the end of the day, I would recommend playing this game, especially with friends, because when you play it like that, it could be one of the most fun multiplayer games out there. But man, that does not wipe away my problems with it. The Like a Dragon series is a bunch of crime dramas about the Yakuza in Japan. There's also a game where you get to sail around on a pirate ship with rocket boosters on the back and shoot laser cannons. Crime drama. See, this is actually the game that inspired this video, because how in the world is a game called Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii going to come out and me not talk about it? I was originally going to give this game its own video, but I don't know, something about it just didn't feel like it could carry a whole video, especially since so much of the content in this game is just taken from Infinite Wealth, aside from all the pirate stuff, of course. You play as Majima, a character who is very important to this series, except in this game he gets amnesia and decides to become a pirate. This game easily has the most insane concept for a game in this series, And don't worry, it lives up to it. This game is a fever dream. Looking at this game compared to the others in this video, the most obvious difference here is that this game is set in modern day Hawaii. Pretty much all of these games have been set in the Caribbean in the 16 to 1700s, or a place that is supposed to greatly resemble that. But no, not this game. You go from getting into pirate ship battles out in the water to doing this. This setting obviously makes this game one of the most unique pirate games out there, since instead of trying to turn a Like a Dragon game into a pirate game, they sort of just taped a pirate game onto the pre-existing Like a Dragon formula. Don't get me wrong, you spend a decent amount of time doing piratey stuff in the main campaign, but a majority of the pirate content is side content that can pretty much be entirely skipped. Most of your time in this game will be spent in the normal beat-em-up style content from these games, which I gotta say I really enjoyed in this game. Both of the fighting styles you have access to are very agile and allow you to do combos in the air and stuff, but the Sea Dog style especially lets you do all sorts of completely insane crap. Honestly, after playing a lot of these games where the combat outside of ship battles kind of sucks, it's nice to play a game where they clearly are comfortable and know what they're doing with the combat system. The ship battles in this game I would best describe as a simplified version of Black Flag's combat, except you obviously do some things you could never dream of doing in that game, like shooting lasers and drifting. I found the ship combat and crew management to all be pretty fun, and honestly, I think if they expanded some of these systems a bit, they could make a game that feels more like a full-fledged pirate game rather than a Yakuza game with a pirate minigame strapped on. Sailing around on the ocean is pretty downgraded from a lot of the other games in this video, because instead of just having free reign of one big area, you instead have a bunch of tinier areas that are completely separated from each other. This does get rid of that exploration aspect, which I do think is kind of important in a game like this. If you're looking for specifically a pirate game, Black Flag or Sea of Thieves are probably the better option, but I do think that Pirate Yakuza in general is a more well put together game because I found all aspects of it to be fun, rather than really loving one part of the game and then hating the other. Even though all the minigames are just copied and pasted from either Infinite Wealth or Like a Dragon, I still found myself really enjoying them, and there is some new stuff like the batting center in Madlantis, which I thought was really fun, and the cooking minigame, which was kind of overpowered, but also it was fun, so I don't really care. Overall, this is probably just a weird game for weird people, so I like it, and those people who play Sea of Thieves by themselves might like it too. So those were the 5 pirate games I wanted to show you guys today. I did a lot of complaining for a video about recommending games to people.